Hello everyone. I know you are watching this video before bed, so before diving into the past and falling asleep, please like and subscribe to the channel. Also, write where you are from and how much time you have. Relax and enjoy. The cold doesn't wake you. Cold is constant. It's the condition of life, not a discomfort. What wakes you is the twitch of your horse's ear, a subtle shift in its breathing. That and the ache in your shoulders from sleeping curled against the hard-packed ground, your cheek pressed into flattened grass. There is no blanket, only fur and discipline. There is no dawn yet, only that steel-colored sky just before it. You exhale into your hands, and your breath vanishes like the heat in your chest, momentary, irrelevant. There are no roosters to announce the hour, no bells, no chants. Just the slow stirring of beasts and men. Around you, other bodies begin to move, not quickly, not with urgency. Mongols do not rush. They rise in silence, each motion part of a rhythm older than memory, shaking stiffness from limbs, checking bowstrings with numb fingers, wiping frost from the straps of saddles. You've never known a world where softness means survival. Here, even rest is tactical. You sleep only as much as your mouth allows. You eat only what doesn't rot. You speak only when necessary, and dawn is not a time for speech. Your gear, if you could even call it yours, is nothing more than shared felt draped over bone. Inside, your cousins and brothers still breathe the thick air of fermented milk and smoke. A mother tends to a fire with one hand, nurses a child with the other. Her eyes are hollow with years, but bright with presence. She sees you rise. She doesn't speak. You nod once. The way a man nods to a storm he cannot change. She nods back. That's all the prayer you'll get this morning. Your bow is already strung. You keep it that way through the night tucked beneath your bedding, warmed by your own breath and body heat. You wouldn't last 10 minutes if the sinews snapped mid-ride. The horn-layered curve fits your grip like a question you've answered 1,000 times. You run your thumb across the string and feel it hum slightly, like a thought half-spoken. The arrows are in a lacquered case, stiff with wear, fletched with eagle feathers and tipped in bone or iron, depending on the prey. You sling the case over your shoulder and step out into the wind. Your horse is already watching you. It's not a stallion. You don't ride for beauty. It's short, muscular, shaggy with winter hair. An extension of you in every way that matters, your lungs, your legs, your speed, your safety. Its breath steams in the chill air as it paws at the frost-bitten grass. You approach slowly, not because it fears you, but because you honor it. A man might live without honor for a time. Without a horse, he dies within days. You click your tongue once. It answers with a flick of the ear, then steps forward. You mount without thinking. No saddle, no reins, just balance. You've ridden since you could crawl, slept on horseback, learned to urinate while galloping. You lean forward, press your chest to the beast's neck, and it moves. Not fast, not yet. You're not hunting men this morning, only silence. You ride out beyond the camp into the grayness of the steppe. No trees, only waist-high brush and endless wind. You see the first sign of life in a twitch of movement near a dry stream bed. A hare, maybe. You don't draw your bow yet. You breathe. You watch. The bow isn't for sport, it's for necessity. You don't eat tonight unless the arrow flies true. And so you wait. When the animal pauses, you lift the bow. No words, no calculations. Just instinct, bred through generations and born into your wrists. The arrow flies. The hare jerks, tumbles, goes still. You dismount, bleeding it where it fell. Hands move without thought. Cut, drain, tie it to the saddle. A scrap of meat, a breath of life, just enough. Just like you. You ride back slowly, wind at your back now. In the distance, the camp has awakened. Smoke rises in blue coils. Somewhere, a horse screams, a baby cries. Men cough harshly into the morning. It is not peace, it is function. Mongols don't rise to greet the day, they rise to use it. Every hour is another chance to survive. You are one of them now. At least you think you are. But your hands are still too soft, your bones too slow, and the bowstring hasn't broken you yet. You think you're the warrior. You think the arrow sings because of your hands, that the dust obeys your weight, that the thunder of hooves follows your command. But you are wrong. Out here, in the wide-skied kingdom of wind and nothingness, you are only as alive as your horse is willing to carry you. It does not belong to you. You belong to it. You do not name it. Naming invites sentiment. Sentiment is death. You track it by its scars, by the shape of its breath, by the stiffness in its back leg when the night's frost has been cruel. It knows the rhythm of your heartbeat, the cadence of your weight, the softness of your knees when fear creeps up your spine. And it tolerates you, barely. Because out here, the horse isn't the companion. It's the infrastructure of war, the mobile platform for survival. And when one fails, it's not the horse that's replaced. It's the man. You ride before you eat. You feed your mount before you taste water. Its saddle blanket is better sewn than your cloak. When it pants, you stop. When it limps, you walk. If it sickens, you cut meat from your own ration to boil herbs. If it collapses, you bury your face in its neck, not to mourn, but to remember the set in case you never return to that exact kind of loyalty again. The horse knows more than you. It hears before you do. It feels vibrations your ears never catch. Once, weeks ago, or was it longer? Your patrol was caught between two ridges, the wind playing tricks with distance. The clouds hung low enough to press against your thoughts. You might have ridden directly into an ambush had your horse not stopped. Simply stopped. Not out of fear. Just stillness, waiting. And so you waited too. Long enough to hear the clatter of foreign hooves echoing up the slope. Long enough to choose another path. Long enough to survive. No one praised the horse, but no one questioned it either. You've learned to ride like breathing. Galloping at full speed while twisting backward to shoot behind you. Hanging from one side of the saddle to dodge arrows. Firing beneath the horse's neck as it turns in a tight circle. You can make 100 tiny adjustments with your legs alone, tightening your thighs to signal speed, shifting weight to change direction. The reins are mostly for decoration. A Mongol's control lies in the hips, the breath, the bond between motion and silence. And the bow? It was made for this dance. Short, curved, composite horn and sinew laminated with glue boiled from bone. It doesn't sing, it snaps. You keep it tucked against your body even when you sleep, because it warps in moisture and stiffens in cold. But it's only half a weapon unless your mount obeys. No infantryman can match the fluid violence of a man loosing arrows at a gallop, one every 6 seconds from a distance he'll never need to cross. But you only get that precision if your horse is calm beneath you. Steady, trained, trusted. It must not flinch when you release. It must not startle at the snap of the string. It must feel no fear, only rhythm, just like you. Once a man in your group lost his horse to a river crossing. He wept like a child, not for the loss of the beast, but because his fate had been sealed by it. He rode double for a day, then fell behind. No one waited. That's the rule. If your horse dies and you don't have another, you're not a rider. You're not a soldier. You're a delay, a burden. Dead weight to be shed before nightfall. And out here, with no trees to shade you, no walls to hide behind, and no hope of rescue. Being left behind is the same thing as being buried. So you care for your mount better than you care for yourself. You trim its hooves before you clip your nails. You pick parasites from its hide while sores fester on your own legs. You whisper to it at night, not in affection, but in necessity. Your survival depends on this creature's willingness to run toward death again and again without question. And when the time comes when arrows fly and the formation splits and the dust rolls over the steppe like smoke, you'll trust its legs more than your eyes, and you'll follow its gallop like a prayer made of muscle. Because out here, The greatest warrior doesn't carry a sword. He carries trust between his knees. There's no breakfast in the steppe. There's no set hour when food appears, no ceramic bowls or warm porridge waiting. There's only the hunger that coils in your stomach like a cold serpent, and the understanding that food is not pleasure, it's survival. You chew when you can, swallow fast, move on. This morning, it's meat again. Always meat. Cured slivers of mutton hard as bone, hacked from the haunch of a sheep slaughtered 3 weeks ago. You chew until your jaw aches, until your saliva softens it into something that won't cut your throat on the way down. Sometimes it's boiled, but not now. You eat it cold, dry, bitter with smoke. There's no fire this morning. Fuel is scarce. Dung burns quick and foul. Time is shorter still. The milk comes next. Not cows' milk cows are rare, slow, and fragile out here. This is Mare's milk, fermented, sour, thick with a tang that sticks to your tongue like vinegar and sweat. Arag, they call it. It churns in a leather bag lashed to the saddle horn, swaying as you ride, fermenting under the sun. You drink it because it keeps, because it gives strength, because it numbs the hunger. You drink it because you must. And it does something to you. Not just to your belly, though it does that too. It twists your thoughts in odd directions. Wakes something in the blood. There's a reason it's passed among riders before battle, why it's offered to the can with both hands and bowed head. It's not just nourishment, it's ritual. The land gives little, so when it does, you take every drop, even if it curdles in your gut. You've grown used to the rhythm, hunger, chew, ride, drink, ride, ride. Your body adapts. It has to. You eat what doesn't rot. You carry cheese so hard, it must be soaked to become chewable. You strip bark from shrubs when the meat runs out. You boil marrow if you're lucky enough to have bones. The stomach shrinks and sharpens. You feel it constantly gnawing, never fully satisfied, like the wind always tugging at your cloak. But out here, hunger isn't a problem. It's a baseline. When meat is plenty, you gorge without shame. You swallow fat in thick, hot chunks and feel the warmth settle into your limbs. You don't savor it, you devour. A man might ride 2 days on the strength of a single greasy meal. But you'll pay for it later, when your belly turns and the world tilts from exhaustion. That's the cost of survival. Madness creeps in sideways. It doesn't arrive like thunder. It seeps, slow and colorless, into the silence between hooves. You ride for hours without a word. The wind drones. The grass repeats itself. The sky never moves. You begin to forget the count of days. You see shapes in the clouds that whisper. You hear your mother's voice in the breathing of your horse. Some men laugh at nothing. Some men whisper to trees. Some men just ride out one day and don't come back. They don't run, they drift, into the distance, into the wind, into some other reality where the line between memory and dream has been blown flat like the grass under their feet. You don't speak of them, not because you're afraid, but because it might be contagious. So you chew harder, you swallow faster. You fill your belly with anything that reminds you you're still here. There is no feasting in the way other men understand it. Even celebration is practical. Meat is boiled. Organs are eaten first. Blood is saved for sausage. Bones cracked for the marrow. Nothing is wasted. If there is drink, it is strong and not for comfort. It burns. It silences. It leaves men weeping for reasons they can't name, and then they ride again. Out here, food is not culture. It is calculation. You eat for the next mile. You drink for the next battle. You ride not because you want to, but because you must. There's always another horizon, always another command, always another distant dot on the map that someone called an empire before it burned. And when the fire is out, when the village is ash and the arrows are gone, you sit again by your horse, tear into cold meat, and swallow without blinking. Because that's how warriors endure. One bite at a time. You don't charge. You don't shout. You don't meet your enemy face to face like a hero from a story. You appear like dust and disappear like breath. That is the first lesson you learn when you leave the grazing lands behind and ride toward the edges of empire. There's no glory in being seen. The bow is your voice, and your voice travels farther than you ever will. You never want to hear steel clash with steel. If you do, something has gone wrong. You didn't come for a duel. You came to unmake formations. You ride wide circles around your prey. You never come close. You loose arrows from a distance where most men squint to see. You fire not at flesh, but at patterns, at rhythm, at cohesion. A single arrow into the right flank, a second to the rear, a dozen loosed while galloping in reverse, each one calculated to scatter, to disturb, to peel men off from their commanders and from each other. You don't kill them all. You just make sure they no longer remember how to stand together. Your bow is your soul. Not poetic metaphor, practical fact. It is a composite thing, wood, horn, sinew. Short enough to fire from horseback, strong enough to punch through armor at 50 paces. It bends with a groan and releases with a thump in your chest. You can fire 6 arrows before a man with a longsword crosses 20 feet. You've done it blindfolded. You've done it upside down, clinging to your horse's flank by one leg. And when the string snaps as it will, as it always does, you don't curse. You just reach for another. Because you carry 3 bows, not one. Tied to your saddle in oilcloth, each with a different draw weight, depending on the kill you seek. Deer or man or cavalry officer behind a shield wall, there is a bow for each. You don't think about it anymore. You just reach, pull, breathe, release. Like blinking. The sound of your arrow in flight is not musical. It doesn't sing, it warns, and then the warning is over. You do not fight alone. A single archer on horseback is a threat. 100 is a storm. 1,000 is an absence. Entire regiments vanish under your dust and never even see your face. You strike at dusk or before dawn, or in the lull of midday heat when minds drift and sentries blink too long. You watch the wind, you calculate the sun's glare. You strike from the east, then reappear in the west. You spend days just watching, waiting for the sound of a commander shouting, for the glint of a raised standard, for any rhythm that might be broken. You don't follow orders, you follow instinct. There is no central trumpet, no banner flapping at the center of your line. You ride with brothers who need no words. One lift of the chin, and they shift. One whistle, and they vanish into the grass. You don't attack in rows. You unfold. A ring of chaos, then silence. You watch dust rise behind them as they retreat. You count the wounded left behind. You don't chase, you shadow. Always near. Always ready to strike the back of the neck when the helmet has been removed. You've learned how to lose on purpose. To retreat is not to flee. It's to invite foolishness, to bait pride, to scatter formations. You show your back like a fox exposing its tail, just long enough to make them follow. And when they break ranks, when the lines become snarled with eager pursuit, when horses outrun their flanks and lieutenants lose sight of their men, that's when the arrows return, from behind, from above, from nowhere, because you never left. You looped, and they followed you straight into the grave you dug with hoofbeats. You don't revel in killing. That's not the point. Victory isn't measured in corpses. It's measured in the fear that lingers, in the message that spreads before you. The Mongols have come, and now they are gone. No smoke, no siege towers. Just dust, just hoofprints. Just men who vanish before you can even curse their names. You ride with the silence of snow falling in the dark, and you leave no bodies for burial. Only shadows. There is no ceremony when a man becomes a soldier. No drums, no public declarations, no medals pinned to the chest. You don't march between banners or kiss a flag. You kneel beside your horse, cut your palm, and bleed into the dust. That's your contract. The ground takes your blood and gives nothing back. Because out here, no one owes you anything, not even the earth. You weren't born a warrior. No one is. You were born into cold wind, to a mother who squatted beside a fire pit with her teeth clenched against the pain, to a father who rarely spoke and measured affection and discipline. You were writing before you spoke in full sentences. You held a bow before your hands could hold still. There is no age of innocence on the steppe. Childhood ends the day you fall from your horse, and no one helps you up. What makes you a soldier is not blood spilled in battle, but the oath spoken at night when no one else hears. Not to the Khan, not to the ancestors, but to the man beside you, your cousin, your sworn brother, your blood-bound second. You drink from the same bowl. You share the same lice. You take his wound as your own, and if he dies, you remember his name every time your arrow finds a throat. That is the only immortality you believe in. Scars tell the rest. They do not mark pride. They mark failure. One just above your hip from a Turkic lance that found the only gap in your armor. Another on your cheek from your own bowstring, snapped mid-gallop in the wet season. One on your forearm from a night raid where the firelight made everything look like a shadow. You don't talk about them. You don't touch them. You trace them only when you're alone, like beads on a string, praying not for forgiveness but for clarity, reminders of what you survived and what you failed to prevent. There are no surgeons in your world, no clean bandages. Wounds are washed with horse piss or vodka, sealed with ash or pressed with hot iron. If you scream, they let you. If you don't, they nod and move on. Pain is not a measure of weakness. Pain is how you learn where your body ends and the rest of the world begins. Sometimes men die of fever, sometimes of rot, sometimes because they simply stop trying. You learn quickly to fight that kind of death with fire, hot broth, rough laughter, songs half forgotten and sung off key. The kind that sound more like mourning than music, but they keep you warm, they keep you close. Smoke is your other companion. Not the kind from villages, though that too has its place, but from the fires you huddle around in the blackest nights, when wind claws through every layer of felt and hide. The smoke carries your stories. It stains your furs. It hides your tears. There are things that men won't say in daylight. Not about the children they left behind. Not about the brother who never returned. Not about the time they saw a commander fall and did nothing but ride away. But in smoke, with eyes half closed, truth can slip out in mutters. You've learned to listen. To the way a voice breaks, then tightens. To the silence that follows certain names. To the deep, dragging breath of a man remembering something he swore he'd forget. You carry those moments, not like armor, like weight, like something earned. You don't fight for a cause. You fight for a name whispered over a shared bowl of salted soup. For the man who pulled you from beneath a dead horse. For the child who stared at you with a bowl in her hands and a bruise on her face. You fight so that when you disappear into dust, someone will say, "He did not break. He did not abandon us." That's all you can ask for. Not glory, not victory, just remembrance. And that too is fragile. Because out here, names vanish faster than bodies. Wind wipes them from the grass. Smoke forgets them in the sky. Time doesn't pause for anyone, not even you. But sometimes, when the fire burns low and the stars are clear, you find yourself whispering those names again, one by one, like prayers, and for a moment, they live again, if only in your breath. They say the land is empty, that there is nothing here but wind and grass and sky, that this is the end of the world, the great in-between, the vast nowhere that empires forget to color on their maps, but they're wrong. The steppe is not empty. It's ancient, it's watching. You don't notice it at first. When you're young, the land is just an expanse, flat, open, endless. It seems like freedom, like possibility. You ride for hours without seeing a tree, without hearing a voice, and it feels like you're in control. But the longer you live out here, the more you understand that the silence isn't absence, it's memory. The ground remembers hooves, It remembers blood. It remembers voices long since turned to bone and dust. And when you lie down at night with your head on the earth, sometimes you feel it hum. Not sound, not exactly. More like pressure. A weight of presence that's always been there. Beneath you, around you, watching with eyes that never blink. You learn to read the signs. The way the grass parts, not like wind, but like something passed through days ago. The smell of old smoke in a place no fire should be. The bones of a sheep too clean to have died recently. A broken arrow in the dirt, still sharp, feathered differently from yours. These are not accidents. These are whispers, warnings. And if you don't listen, you disappear. Not always in battle. Sometimes a man just rides the wrong line across the hills. Picks the wrong stream to camp beside. He doesn't come back. No one finds his body. Maybe it was wolves. Maybe it was bandits. Maybe it was the land, tired of being disrespected. You don't own the steppe. You borrow it, one hoofprint at a time. When the sky darkens, it darkens with weight. Not like a storm in other places. Not sudden. Not violent. But slow, like a hand being placed gently over your eyes. The wind shifts. The smell of the grass changes. The birds vanish without a sound. And then the light goes not gray, but blue. Deep, bruised, ancient blue. You've ridden through it before. You've felt your chest tighten for no reason. You've told yourself it's nothing, that it's just weather. But your horse tenses too. And that's enough. Because animals don't lie. They don't imagine ghosts. When they shiver under you, you listen. You dismount. You check your arrows. You check the sky. You don't talk. No one does. Out here, when the steppe speaks, it speaks once. And it does not repeat itself. You've seen mirages. Not just heat shimmer. Not tricks of distance. But full figures riders on the horizon who never move, never approach, never vanish. Just stand motionless as you pass. And when you look away, then look again, they're gone. Once, near the Black Hills, you passed a cairn that wasn't on any map. A pile of rocks, old, sun-bleached, with a circle of bones placed carefully around it. Someone had been buried there long ago, someone important. You stopped. You lit incense, though you had none left to spare. You whispered words your grandfather taught you. Not because you believed it would help, but because you knew it would hurt if you didn't. At night, the wind talks more. You hear it whistle through your horse's mane, rattle your bowstrings, tug at the seams of your coat like fingers that once held steel. The tent flaps stir even when there's no breeze. Men sleep with their backs to the fire and their eyes open. No one says why. No one needs to. You felt it too. That sense of being counted, watched, weighed. You may conquer cities, burn palaces, leave rivers black with soot, but the steppe conquers you. Not all at once. Not in battle. Slowly, quietly. In the days that stretch too long. In the dust that never leaves your teeth. In the feeling that no matter how far you ride, you were never the one moving. You were being carried by something older than blood. You think of siege warfare as battering rams, towering walls, engines hurling stones. You imagine boiling oil and ladders and men shouting atop parapets. But that's the imagination of a castle dweller, of someone who has walls to protect them and time to die behind them. Out here, on the edge of civilization, a siege isn't a thunderclap. It's a whisper, a waiting, a hunger that sharpens over weeks until the only thing louder than silence is your own thoughts turning on themselves. You do not attack the walls. That's the first mistake your enemies always make. They prepare for what they know. They brace their gates, raise their shields, build stockpiles and pray to gods who've never seen this land. But the Mongol siege begins long before you even see the city. Long before the banners rise or the scouts return with the first glance at a fort silhouette. It begins with a map sketched into dirt by a man who's never been there, but whose uncle died outside its gates. It begins with the name of a water source etched from memory, with the route of a merchant caravan that passed through 5 summers ago, with the rumor of a weak wall built after the last flood and never repaired. The siege starts with knowledge, and it finishes with patience. You surround the city not with walls, but with breath. Silent breath. Riders spaced over the horizon like stars, each too distant to strike, yet close enough to watch. 1 circle, then 2. Then nothing leaves, no trade, no messenger, no bird. The roads vanish under hoofprints. The wells dry poisoned or clogged with dung. Herds disappear. Trees are felled. Entire fields, once ripe, now trampled. Every sign of life shrinks inward. The city becomes a cage, and the walls they trusted become the very thing that kills them. They don't realize it at first. At first, they mock you. You've seen it, men waving cloaks from the ramparts, shouting insults in tongues you don't need to understand. They call you cowards, barbarians. They laugh behind their stones, because they don't understand yet that stones don't stop hunger. They don't stop time. They don't stop you. You wait. You hunt in shifts. You boil horse bones. You chew on leather straps. You drink from your horses, slicing the vein at the neck and sealing it with ash. You live on less than a city guard's rat, because you know you won't need to do it forever. But they might. Weeks pass, then a month. The gates open not for war, but for negotiation. A diplomat rides out with trembling hands and eyes that dart to each shadow. His robes are clean, but his fingernails are dark with stress. He offers gold, horses, silk. He says there is no need for blood, that they'll open the gates for trade, that the city can serve your Khan. You offer nothing, you give him bread. Let him carry it back. 1 loaf, stale, dense, saltless. The message is clear. We feed ourselves. What will you eat? He doesn't return. You watch from the distance as torches burn later each night. You see the smoke rising not from hearths but from burning furniture. You see the birds circling above, waiting. The dogs vanish from the alleys. The rats become currency. The strong kill the weak to feed their own. And all the while, your circle draws tighter. Your scouts report no wells, no grain stores, no signs of relief. You've bled the land clean. And now it's the city that bleeds inward. You don't need ladders. They will open the gates for you. Not because you've broken them, but because you've broken everything else. Pride, trust, hope. You ride in not like a conqueror, but like a tide returning to the shore. Calm, unstoppable. Some cities you leave standing. Others you burn, not from cruelty, from strategy. Ash does not rebel. What the rest of the world fails to understand is that the siege is not a moment. It's a season. It doesn't look like war. It looks like waiting. It looks like grass rustling. Like hoofbeats on a ridge too far away to count. Like the sound of nothing outside the walls for days, then weeks, then forever. And when it ends, there's no cheer, no celebration. Only the groaning of gates that open too slowly, and the silence of a people who learned too late what kind of enemy never had to touch their walls to win. You've never seen his face, not truly. Not without distance, without framing, without the halo of silence that follows him like a second cloak. But you've heard his name since childhood, spoken around fires, murmured in moments of doubt, carved into the handles of blades. Khan, not just a man, not even a king, something bigger, something older. The gravity around which your entire sky turns. You don't ride for him. You ride because of him. There's a difference. His commands do not arrive on parchment. They arrive in riders silent, grim-faced, clad in black and dust. You've seen them cross entire valleys without drinking, without speaking, without so much as glancing at the men they pass. They carry no banners, no symbols, just the weight of authority, and the knowledge that they have ridden further than you, seen more than you, and that their silence is the only warning you'll ever get. One of them rides into camp after the siege. No trumpet, no ceremony. Just appears at the edge of the firelight like he's always been there. His horse is gaunt. His eyes are not. He says your name and the name of your commander. Nothing else. You follow without asking why. That's how it works. Questions are for men who are sure they'll return. The court of the Khan isn't a palace, it moves. A traveling sea of tents, leather walls, and armored silence. The air here smells of fermented milk and iron. You are not brought before him immediately. You wait. For hours, days. Among others like you, officers, scouts, translators. War-scarred men who wear armor that doesn't match and speak languages that twist your ears. All of you silent. Not from discipline, but because no one here dares guess why they were summoned. You share food. You do not share thoughts. Then, at dusk, your name is called again. No title, no preamble. You stand, you walk. You do not run. The Khan waits beneath a plain canopy, seated on a folding throne of carved wood and felt. He wears nothing golden, nothing jeweled. Just layers of wool and leather, a sash the color of old blood, and a curved saber resting across his lap like a sleeping animal. His beard is gray. His eyes are not. When he looks at you, you feel every lie you've ever told sweat out through your skin. He doesn't speak first. A scribe beside him reads your record not in praise, but in plain detail. Actions, distances, victories, deaths, mistakes. You did not think anyone noticed when you hesitated before firing on the courier, or when you left the wounded scout behind. But here they are, named, measured, weighed. The Khan listens without expression. Then he speaks. He does not ask if you are loyal. He does not ask if you are strong. He tells you what you are, what you will become, what is now expected of you. You nod not as a gesture of agreement, but because your neck remembers its place. You are given a command. Not a choice, a road, a city, a name. Something must be retrieved, or destroyed, or judged. Failure is not discussed. It does not exist here. If you were not worthy, you would not have been summoned. If you do not return, your bones will still serve him. As you leave, you pass others. Some look relieved, others broken. One man stares into the ground as if it spoke to him. Another grips a scroll so tightly that blood leaks between his knuckles. You do not speak to them. You mount, you ride. Your orders are sealed. The ink still smells fresh. That night, the stars seem sharper, not brighter sharper. Like blades in the sky, ready to carve history into flesh. You sleep lightly. Your dreams are not your own. The Khan is not just a man. He is a mirror. He reflects the fear in your heart and calls it weakness. He reflects the strength in your limbs and calls it duty. And somewhere, deep in the silence of the next night's ride, you realize the most terrifying truth of all. You don't fear the Khan because he might kill you. You fear him because you want him to remember your name. There's a silence that only exists after death. It doesn't sound like peace. It sounds like something missing. A gap in the world where a voice once lived, where a heartbeat once kept pace with a gallop, where a man once sang through cracked lips to keep fear away. That silence is everywhere now. You ride through it. You breathe it in. It coats your tongue like ash. You weren't sent to battle. Not this time. The Khan's orders were simple. Ride west, cut what's left. A city once claimed to be taken. An enemy force said to be destroyed. But messengers stopped coming. And no one returns from silence unless dragged by someone else. You ride alone. For 3 days there's nothing. Just horizon and your own horse's breath. The landscape is not unfamiliar, but it feels wrong. Off. The grass is flattened in strange patterns, like men slept here without building a camp. The wind smells of smoke that burned too long ago to see, but not long enough to forget. You pass a tree half stripped of bark, not by lightning, but by knives. A message, a warning. Then you find the first body. It's not buried, not arranged. Just there, In the grass, lying like it collapsed mid-step. No armor, no saddle, no sword. Just bones and scraps of wool, picked clean by animals or time. You dismount and kneel. You don't look away. You reach down and flip the shoulder over to find the knot on the collar, the knot your people tie when leaving camp. A simple twist that means I'll return. He didn't. You find another, a half-mile farther on, and then another. No great pile, no battlefield, just one here, one there. Like they were scattered by hand. Like death hunted them not in groups but in whispers, one by one, until the only thing left was the wind between ribs and the memory of footsteps that led nowhere. You follow the trail. Eventually you find what's left of the camp. Charcoal rings where fires once burned. Broken stirrups. A cracked pot still holding the crusted remains of boiled millet. The remains of a felt tent, collapsed like a wounded beast. Flies hum around a circle of blackened grass. It doesn't take long to understand what happened. It wasn't an ambush. It wasn't battle. It was abandonment. They were left here wounded, sick, broken, leaderless. The wounded don't scream when they know no help is coming. They just wait, and eventually they stop waiting. Some tried to walk. Some tried to hide. You find one body curled in a hollow, as if the earth might fold itself over him like a blanket. It didn't, and now it's your job to remember them. You do not bury them. That is not your right. But you mark the bones, stack stones where you can. Whisper the names if you know them, or even if you don't. Someone should speak over them, even if it's only your breath. That night, you build no fire. You eat cold. You drink sparingly. You dream not of battle, but of walking, alone, forever, not hunted, just forgotten. And when you wake, the silence has thickened, not louder, just closer. You realize something as the sun rises, pale and flat over the grasslands. This is how it ends for most. Not in a charge, not in fire, not with glory or songs, but with bones left for the wind, and a single rider who might reface long enough to whisper it once more before turning away. And you wonder, with cold certainty pressing against your ribs like a dull blade, will that rider be you someday? It doesn't start with a stumble. That's the first lesson you learn about a dying horse. It's not sudden, not dramatic. It starts small, a change in the rhythm of hooves against the earth, so slight you barely register it. A hesitation at the stream's edge, a longer breath after a climb. You tell yourself it's nothing. You say, it's just the heat, just the weight of gear, just the wind. You're wrong, because when the horse stops, you stop. You are not separate things. You are one. You do not lead it. You do not ride it. You move together, and when one breaks, so does the other. It happens on the fourth day west of the abandoned camp. You've crossed 3 dry valleys. You haven't spoken aloud since the last crow took off from the grass 2 nights ago. The land is so quiet that the creak of your saddle sounds like thunder. And then, halfway down a ridge of cracked stone and pale grass, your horse slows, not from fear, not from stubbornness, from exhaustion. Its ribs show. Its mouth foams at the corners. You dismount without thinking and walk beside it, leading it by the reins like a younger brother. You whisper nothing, not out of cruelty, but because there's nothing you can say that the horse doesn't already know. You camp that night in the lee of a boulder shaped like a broken tooth. There is no grass. You feed the horse the last of the dried barley you carried. You drink the warm dregs of a goatskin that once held cold water. You do not light a fire. The wind is too dry, too watchful. Instead, you listen to your heartbeat. And the slower one beside it, the horse doesn't sleep. It rests, its legs tucked under like folded timber. Its ears twitch now and then, as if searching for sounds that should be there. The rest of the herd, the whistle of riders, the hoofbeats of patrols. But you are alone, and it knows it. You run a hand along its neck. It leans into you. That more than anything, is the wound. Morning arrives with gray light and thin clouds. You rise slowly, your bones crack. Your knees protest. The saddle creaks like it doesn't remember your weight. You pull the reins. The horse doesn't move. Not immediately. Not rebelliously. Just ... You don't strike it. You don't shout. You wait, kneel, press your forehead gently to its neck. Then, when your eyes stop stinging, you begin unpacking, redistributing weight. Less gear. Fewer tools. A rolled felt blanket, abandoned. The small wooden idol your mother gave you, left between stones. You take only what matters: water, bow, arrows, blade, and salt. Always salt. Then slowly the horse rises. It walks, limping, but walking. And in that moment, you understand something most soldiers never will. True loyalty isn't trained, it's shared. You did not command the horse. It simply chose to keep going. For you, and you know it will die for that choice. By noon, the sun is sharp. Not bright sharp, like the edge of judgment. You cross a dry riverbed, the bones of fish glinting in the dust like discarded jewelry. You hear thunder. But there are no clouds. It's the hooves of someone else. You draw your bow, crouching low beside the horse. You wait, breath held, eyes narrowing against the heat shimmer. And then one rider, alone, dirty, thin, his horse is limping too. He sees you, you see him. You both lower your weapons at the same time. You ride together that day, without speaking. He has no name to offer. You don't ask. He shares water. You share dried meat. That night, your horses sleep nose to nose. You and the stranger sit in silence, watching the stars scrape their slow arc across the sky. He has a scar beneath his jaw, poorly healed. He touches it once, not for your benefit, but to remind himself it's still there. Then he leans back, eyes closed, and says, "They think we're invincible." You don't respond. There's no need. Because they do. They see the arrows, the speed, the victories. They see the cities you burn, the generals who surrender, the terror that rides ahead of you like a shadow. They don't see the ulcers on your horse's flank, the rotting molars in your jaw, the skin on your hands peeling from too many dry days and too much blood scrubbed with cold ash. They don't see what happens when the horse stops. You ride again in the morning. The stranger is gone. Not rudely, not without trace, just gone like a dream. A single footprint where he stood, a dent in the grass, the smell of oil on his saddle blanket. Maybe he was real, maybe not. You ride alone again, but now the weight is different. Because now you carry more than gear. You carry the limit, the edge of endurance, the knowledge that even the best rider, the finest horse, the sharpest arrow will stop. And the question is no longer if. It's whether you'll recognize that moment when it comes, or whether it will ride past you, unnoticed, until you're just one more skull in the wind. You've loosed hundreds of arrows. In battle, in practice, in hunger. You've watched them fly, singing through the air like sharpened birds, and land with the finality of judgment. Some struck hearts, others struck banners. A few never landed at all, swallowed by snow, or sand, or the long grass that hides the bones of last year's campaign. But always, they went away from you. That's how it's supposed to be. But not this time. This time, the arrow comes to you. It arrives before dawn, in the cold moment between dreams and waking. You hear the wind flap your tent, then a soft th-empa, so soft you almost ignore it. But your eyes snap open. Not from sound, but instinct. You crawl from your blanket. The sky is still gray with stars. Your horse breathes steady. Nothing moves. Then you see it. An arrow, planted perfectly upright in the dirt outside your tent. Not fired. Placed. You approach slowly, as if it might speak. The shaft is pale wood. No blood, no barbs. Just black horsehair tied near the fletching in a knot you recognize. It's the mark of a messenger without words. An arrow sent not for war, but for silence. You've seen it only once before, in the hands of a man who vanished the day after he received it. There is no written message, but the meaning is clear. Ride north. Ride alone. Tell no one. You do not eat. You do not question. You saddle the horse and ride before the sun fully rises. Your heart beats slower than usual, not from calm, but from a sense of inevitability. You do not know if this is reward or punishment. You only know the arrow does not lie. And you do not return it. The north is colder. The grass is brittle. The air bites through felt and skin and memory. You ride past stones marked with old runes, past cairns too weathered to name, past places where even the wind doesn't speak. You do not know what you are riding toward, only that whoever placed that arrow knew you would come. On the third night, you arrive at a hollow between two hills. A fire burns low. A tent sits half folded, and beside it, a man. Alone, you recognize him. Or rather, you recognize the absence of who he used to be. He was once an officer, a leader, a name men shouted before battle. He sat beside the Khan in judgment. You remember his voice, clear and sharp, ordering you to hold formation as arrows rained like iron rain. You also remember when he vanished. Without punishment, without honor, without even a rumor. He gestures for you to sit. You do. There are no greetings, no explanations. He hands you a scroll, sealed in wax, marked with the Khan symbol. You know better than to break it. You tuck it into your coat, near your heart. It feels heavier than it should. He speaks only once as you prepare to ride. You'll pass 3 rivers. You'll be watched at each. Ride like you've ridden this road before. Then he turns back to the fire, not a farewell, a dismissal. You ride. At the first river, you see the watchers. High on the ridge, small silhouettes, still as statues. You do not look up. You do not wave. You do not run. You ride straight through the ford, water chilling your horse's flanks. When you reach the far bank, the watchers are gone. The second river is wider, frozen at the edges. The ice breaks under your horse's steps, but it does not fall. You make no sound. The air is too still for shouting. You ride as if your bones remember this path from another life. At the third river, you wait, not because you choose to, because they are already waiting. 5 riders, faces masked. Bows sheathed, but close at hand, you dismount. Hold out the scroll. The leader takes it, breaks the seal, reads, says nothing. Then he nods once. You are not killed. You are not questioned. You are given a satchel. Inside, 1 arrow, barbed, black-feathered, new, and a name you recognize. A name you were not meant to say aloud. You ride back in silence. The arrow lies across your lap, light as wood, heavy as judgment. It is not for war. It is for a man the Khan no longer trusts. You understand now. This is not the arrow that flies with others. It is not meant to rain death in volleys. It is deliberate. It flies once, from 1 bow, for 1 purpose, and it does not return. They don't write stories about these people. There are no songs, no lines in the secret history, no carved tablets passed from hand to hand. And yet they exist in the space between battles, behind the bends in the road you were told not to take, in the folds of hills where the grass grows darker and the wind doesn't to match the season. You've passed them before. You just didn't see them. But today you do, because today you took the wrong path, or the right one, depending on who you ask. It starts with a shortcut, a stream swollen from meltwater, forcing a detour up into higher hills. You're riding light, with only the arrow and the silence it demands. The sky is bruised with dusk. The snow has retreated, but the mud beneath it remembers. Your horse stumbles once, twice. You stop, and then you smell it. Smoke, not battlefield smoke. Not the greasy pitch stink of siege fire or the sharpness of fresh blood. This is home smoke, a hearth, wet wood, Dung, grass, human. There shouldn't be a village here. You turn the horse toward it anyway. You tell yourself you're checking for stragglers, bandits, saboteurs. But the truth is simpler. You're curious. And that's the most dangerous reason of all. The village is small, not on any map. Just 5 yurts, arranged loosely in a low bowl of land where the wind seems to skip. Goats cluster around a crooked fence. Smoke rises thinly from holes in felt roofs. No guards, no horses, no markings. But the people see you. Not with fear, not with awe, with recognition. An old woman steps forward. Her face is carved like a riverbed lines flowing into lines. She does not bow. She does not ask your name. She simply says, "So he sends another." Your stomach tightens. You don't answer. You don't even know the question. Children peek from tent flaps. A man with a twisted leg stirs a pot and glances up, then returns to his cooking like you were the wind. Another, broad-shouldered and scarred, watches from a stool with a blade across his knees, but doesn't stand. They know who you are, or what you represent, and they're not afraid. That terrifies you more than ambush ever could. You dismount slowly. You keep your bow strung, but low. The old woman leads you to a fire and pours fermented milk into a clay bowl. You drink. It's sour. Thick. Alive. She speaks again. He sent a boy once. Years ago, young, shaved chin, eyes like spring ice. He never came back. You stare into the bowl. Another rider appears beside the fire. You didn't see him approach. His face is weather-beaten, and his coat bears no rank. But there's something in his posture that feels military, or used to be. He crouches beside you, not close, not distant. "Did he give you a name?" he asks. You don't answer. Not because you're withholding, but because you don't know. That's when it shifts. They know why you're here, not the specifics. Not the arrow wrapped in oilcloth beneath your coat, but the role. The function. They've seen others. They've all learned what happens when the can begins asking questions about places that don't exist. You've walked into a story you weren't meant to hear. The woman stands. Her shadow stretches long and strange across the grass. "You'll ride out tomorrow," she says. "And you'll forget you saw us." The man nods. "Or you'll never leave." It's not a threat, it's a fact. You sleep on goat hair blankets. Your horse is fed better than you. At dawn, you're handed dried meat and a new water skin. No one says goodbye. As you leave the hollow, you glance back. That's when you see it. Each person standing outside their yurt, watching you, not waving, not pleading, just watching. And when you turn your head forward again, something in your chest feels heavier than the arrow. Because you realize what makes these people different. What makes them dangerous. They turned their heads, not away, toward you. In a world ruled by fear, by hierarchy, by silence, the ones who look back are the ones who've already chosen death over obedience. And you know what that means. If the Khan finds them, they burn. If you tell him, they vanish. If you do nothing, you carry their memory like a wound no blade can reach. The arrow has never left your side, wrapped in cloth, pressed against your ribs as you sleep, carried across rivers, through storms, past ruins, and into the silence of Forbidden's valleys. You haven't spoken its name, but you've imagined the moment 1,000 times, when you draw the bow, steady your breath, and end the life of a traitor with one perfect release. But now, face to face with him, you realize something terrible. You don't even know what he did. He greets you by name. Not your title, not archer, not messenger, not horseman. Your name. You haven't heard it in weeks, maybe months, maybe longer. He stands in the doorway of a collapsed shrine. Clay walls half sunken. A roof of woven grass and broken spears. The earth is soft here, damp from hidden springs. A place forgotten by maps, and yet somehow waiting. He looks older than you expected. Not frail, just done. His armor hangs like ritual. His sword is dull, but still worn at the hip. His bow is strung. But he doesn't reach for it. He doesn't need to. He knows why you're here. You sit. Not in battle stances, not in readiness. Just two men tired. The fire between you crackles low. He stokes it absently with the toe of his boot. Then he speaks. I taught your commander to tie his stirrups. He always left them too loose. You say nothing. I was there when your first general bled out in the snow. He held his guts in with both hands. We buried him with his eyes open. Still silence. He looks at you, really looks. Then nods slowly. You don't know what I did. That's good. It means they're still afraid to say it aloud. He reaches into his coat. You shift barely, hand touching the cloth where the arrow lies. He notices. He doesn't care. What he draws isn't a weapon. It's a scroll. Unsealed, he places it beside you. No explanation. You wait. Still, the fire snaps. Somewhere a bird calls and is unanswered. Then he says, take it back. Give it to him. You glance at the scroll. You don't reach for it. Not yet. You think I'd ride all this way just to carry a letter? You say. Your voice sounds dry. Smaller than you remember. He shrugs. You rode all this way with an arrow and no reason. A letter isn't heavier. You read it that night. You weren't supposed to, but you do. It's not treason. It's worse. It's truth. The scroll lists names, places, dates, quiet changes no one recorded, orders issued under false seals, a battle that never happened, a treaty that was never written, and one command buried, rerouted, erased from record, that condemned hundreds of your brothers to die. He signed it. He kept the copy. Because someone had to remember. You don't sleep. You sit by the fire with the scroll in your lap and the arrow beside it. One for the Khan, one for the truth. Only one will return. At dawn, he's already packed. He doesn't wait for questions. He simply says, you decide what the story is. Then he mounts and rides east. Alone. He knows what your choice will cost. He also knows it's not his anymore. You ride back. Through the same dead valleys. Past the river that froze beneath your horse's hooves. Past the field where you first felt the weight of silence. At the edge of the Khan's court, you pause. You reach into your coat. You take out the scroll, and you burn it. The flames rise. The wax bubbles. The truth dies without a sound. You do not draw the arrow. You do not speak his name. When the black-robed scribe asks if your task is done, you nod once. Nothing more. And from that day on, you are different. No one sees it, but you do. You no longer dream of arrows, or battle, or glory. You dream of silence, and faces you can't name, and villages that turn their heads. You become the thing the Khan most trusts, a man who knows when to forget, a man who has already buried himself. Epilogue. The riderless horse. Years later, someone finds a horse wandering near the ruins of a river camp. Its saddle is worn, but oiled. Its hooves are shod, but chipped. There's no rider. No blood, just an arrow, carefully wrapped in cloth. And the wind. Always the wind.